We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmet's casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got...
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome to a League of Legends Domination Station Optimizer tutorial, where we're going to take a look at the DFS Army Domination Station and how it's used to put together stacked optimized lineups for League of Legends. It is Tuesday. I don't even know what day it is, but it is the 12th of January. There's a big slate tomorrow, the first 4-game slate of the League of Legends season. So I figured this is a good time to get a refresher course, first of all, on how to attack League of Legends, and also how to use the Domination Station Optimizer to create stacked lineups for League of Legends. So I'm going to focus in on this slate because it's what we have to look at. But the point of this is a lot more to do with showing you how to use this tool and how to use the tools at hand at DFS Army to create optimized lineups and take down these tournaments. I've won a lot of League of Legends tournaments. A lot of times you tie and you win, but sometimes you can win them solo. A lot of times that means having to get on some unusual situations. And I hear you. Love NBA tonight, but overall, League of Legends is awesome, and it's a totally different thing. Requires much less research, and it's, for me, League of Legends is much more process-based. So the first thing I'm going to do is just kind of explain the process. With League of Legends, for the most part, because there's so much bonus in winning when your team wins in this game, it's very process related. We want to stack teams. We want a 4 and a 3 and a 4-man stack in each lineup as the ideal approach. Sometimes one-offs work where you do 3, 3, and 1. There are little tricks that you can do, like we can stack a team, everybody on the team except the actual team, or essentially team defense or team position, where those don't tend to score the same way. So essentially the correlation between the main players on each team, the top, the jungle, the mid, the ADC, and the support, is there. But the actual team position is the least correlated. Team does its best when an actual, it's called team, it's difficult. But let's say Invictus Gaming here. Invictus Gaming, quote, the team position will do its best score if Invictus smashes their opponent, wins quick, and completely dominates them. But the players on Invictus do a lot better if it's a bloody sort of smash game. So that's why, of all of the position groups that are tied together, the, quote, team position is the least correlated, except for the fact that the team position needs the team to win. So there's little tricks for that I'll show you in a minute here. But to get started, the first thing we want to understand the basics. When you open up the Domination Station, you'll see all of the teams that are playing on this slate and the odds for each team to win the game. Now, as I look across this week's slate, we see Gen G and KT. Gen is a minus 470 favorite. We actually have the odds in win percentage here, so you can see the win percentage odds for each team. Great. That's part one of the puzzle. Now, a lot of people just see this and go, well, I'm just going to play the favorites. The favorite players are priced higher than the underdogs, significantly higher, to the point where you can't make a very good team by matching up two favorite teams. So one of the moves in League of Legends is to try to pick the correct underdog. That might be easier than it sounds, but I have also noted that earlier in the season, underdogs, it's like anybody can win in League of Legends. Last night, we had a minus 1,800 favorite lose, and that's something that I want you guys who are watching this to get into your head. Do not worry that much about underdog teams. They win plenty. A 35% chance to win, while it might look scary with a little red, 35% is still 35% chance to win. That's pretty good. That's fine. So that's really, really important to note. And now we're going to show a couple of the features of this tool and how to use it. So first of all, the stacking system is the most important. So you have your basic your basic options, salary range, we don't touch that. Salary cap, we don't touch that. You're going to set how many lineups you're going to make. And I guess for the purpose of this demo, I have it set for 50 lineups, right? And so we'll do some demonstrations using 50 lineups. There's a couple very, very important settings, though, that I want everybody to pay close attention to. So I always use tournament mode when I use the domination station. Fantasy points. So when you first start, it's going to be set on what's called mean DFS Army projections. This is important to use. Mean DFS Army projections, or a mean projection, is essentially what should happen, an average score. So if we ran the slate 100 times, this would be the average score of the player. That's called the mean. That's standard projections for all systems. I have personally noticed, and we have built something unique in here. I have personally noticed that in League of Legends, essentially, if your team doesn't win, the players aren't on the winning team, you ain't winning shit in a tournament, right? So we have a secondary type of projection system called fantasy points in a win projection. But here's the danger. If you use fantasy points in a win projection, it's pretty much going to use a lot of underdogs because they're going to be the massive values. So you have to understand when you use fantasy points in a win, which is a very good thing to use, we have to use that in conjunction with controlling our exposures. And I'm going to show you how to do that. A little complicated, but not too complicated. All right, so let's start with team stacks because that's the most important thing that we do in League of Legends. We want to stack teams. Now, there are two ways to go about team stacking. You could do 4-3 stacks, or you could do 3-3 stacks, or you could do 4-2 stacks. All of them are perfectly viable. I like 4-3 stacks on a large slate like this, so I'm going to show that. Now, one other thing that we have available to us here is to disallow certain positions from stacks. So this is one of my favorite features that we have built in to the domination station that not a lot of people know about. Again, the domination station is the best tool in the industry for making League of Legends lineups, and you're going to see why. So I mentioned before that the team position is not really correlated directly with the players themselves on a particular team. It's correlated in the sense that if the team wins, that team position will score well. But the players on the team itself scoring really well in a win is not correlated to the team position. So, for example, kind of like a low-scoring team itself that wins a game but puts up a big we don't mind playing a team as a one-off as long as that team wins is where I'm getting to. That's how you take the nuts. That's a technique to try to win. It also makes your lineups unique. So you can disallow the team position from the stacks if you like. That's the point. If you disallow it from your primary stack, what's going to happen is your 4-player stack is going to have all position players, no quote team position, which is a good thing. If you disallow it from your secondary stack, and that would have to be a 4-2 stack, then neither stack will include the team, and then it will just choose a team as a one-off. Now, the danger in choosing a team as a one-off is if that team loses, it's going to fuck up your lineup, especially if the 2 stacks you have win. But the positive is it creates uniqueness, and sometimes you can get a cheaper team in there and you can make some sexy lineups. So you do have to pay attention to this. This is not always necessary. Now, if you're going to run 4-3 stacks, which is the basic way of running this tool, I'm going to give it a little run, and then I'm going to show you what happens, and then I'm going to show you how I change it up. So I'm just going to run raw with all teams allowed, 4-3 stacks, using mean DFS Army projections. This is going to get you started. I want to show the results, so I show how to change up the results and make it more likely to win tournaments. So we just start with the basic 4-3 stack, and you're going to see we're able to control everything using this tool, which is awesome. But if you don't know how to use it, it's not going to work out very well. So I just ran 50 lineups, and let's see what I got. So in the 50 lineups that I ran, it gave me 98% exposure to IG and 82% exposure to Gen, then 14% Wii and 6% T1. Now, what's interesting about this result is we got all favorites. And the reason is because when you use mean projections, the favorite team is supposed to win. It's expected to win. So essentially, they're projected higher. You got all favorites here. At the same time, what probably ended up happening is, we got a lot of really, really shitty captains. So again, secondarily to me, when I play League of Legends DFS, I want the highest scoring players in the captain position on DraftKings, meaning things like the team top and support, no good. So here's what I do to deal with that situation. The first thing is I go to the captain spot, click on team, remove all of them. This is the captain tab where we control captain exposures specifically, right? I go to support. And Ray, if you're out there, man, tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Like if you think I should be playing supports at captain, let me know, but I don't do it and I never have. So I want to leave my 80 season. I want to leave my mids and my jungles. And I don't mind removing the tops, but I'm going to leave them for now. I don't mind removing them either. But if you remove the tops, you'll rarely get a favorite versus favorite stack. And I don't mind having some of that, but I don't use supports or the team position as captain ever. I'm curious if a support has ever been the nuts captain. It's probably happened, but I think we're better off just not using them. All right, so now that I've removed that, again, I'm going to give it another run because I like to see the results after every action that I do, but we haven't even gotten into the fun stuff yet. So we'll get into the fun stuff in a second here. We can fully control these exposures. We're also going to take a look at the cheat sheet to give us some ideas of what teams we should be stacking in this tournament. So the general consensus is that I guess the Korean League teams play to lower scores than the Chinese League teams. So the Korean League teams, Gen and KT, T1 and HLE, they're Korean League teams. They tend to be lower scoring compared to the Chinese League teams, LNG, IG, WE, and V5. Right? Now, I'm looking at these odds, and the best odds for an underdog is Team V5. Now, if I go to our League of Legends spreadsheet, I don't need to be on screen here. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, acceptable, but you don't want to go there too much is what Advantage is saying, and I agree with you. Now, here I've brought up the cheat sheet on screen because I want to point out a couple things. First of all, we break down all of these teams, all the position groups, whoever's starting. You have confirmed starting lineups here pointed out for you. So it's really, really important to check this because some of these games have players in them that we don't even know if they're going to play. And Advantage, I'm really glad you're here with me because I do want to talk about this game right here, T1, and all these sub threats and like what time this is going off at. Because if you're telling me that all of these guys, we don't even know who the fuck is playing, and all of these guys are sub threats, and this thing is going to be one of the later games, and we probably won't know, the best thing to do in that situation is uncheck them. I'm just going to ignore this team. The other thing is, I like to look at the slate rankings that Ray Advantage puts out here and try to understand, all right, which teams will score really well if they win. And of course, you have the Chinese League teams as great or good scores and all of the Korean League teams as bad scores. That doesn't mean they won't score well. I do recall Gen G pretty much smashing scores last season, but we'll see if that continues to happen this new season with all this new stuff. The other thing is you can take a look and see some statistics here, like fantasy points in a win scores and fantasy points in a loss scores and average points and all this stuff. So really, really good information here. You also see, and this is really important to me, a couple things. Number one, kills, average kills and deaths. That kind of gives you an idea of if a team is bloody or not. Like V5, 15.9 average kills per win. Not that great. Not that great. We're not a great scoring team, but they could win this game, right? We, on the other hand, 18.4 kills. That's pretty good. And you also look at how many deaths. We, 17.2. Well, all right. LNG, 17 and 18 for IG. Let's see where these guys are. Gen G, 18.4. I'm going to treat them as an L CK team, like a Chinese league team, because they're getting their kill numbers were way up there. KT not as much. T1 17.4, not bad, but we have the sub threat. So, couple things of note. I read these notes, and I've already read through these notes for tonight. I've read through most of them. KT, we have a problem with a lot of sub threats. Plus 335 underdog. A lot of sub threats. I don't like that. Gen G, at least we know who's playing. HLE, if we're playing them, we have to be careful of Morgan and Arthur. I may just uncheck these two. I think there was a lot of discussion about support, and I'm just going to uncheck T1. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get rid of the scary situations. T1, I'm just unchecking them. They're not a great scoring team anyway. Actually, I'm going to leave them checked off, but what I'll do is I'll just uncheck their position players and leave the team as eligible in case I want to use them. So I'm just going to remove any players from T1 because they're all, I guess, yeah, this guy, a medium risk of sub. I don't want that. Anybody who's a medium risk, even a low risk of sub, I'm not in love with, but certainly anybody who's a medium risk of sub, I'm just going to take them out. So we got rid of, I think, all of those guys. Take out the low risk too. Lang X, let me see what's on the sheet about Lang X. Yeah, no, confirmed. So I'm not worried about him. I'm not worried about mid-game subbing. I'm worried about being subbed out before the game starts. So again, just a little bit of house cleaning and trying to figure out who to play. We still got a lot to cover here. So I just ran 50 lineups, and you'll see again I got all this Gen G. T1, I started to get a little bit better of a mix because I started to disallow some players from the captain position, and now we're getting a better mix. ADCs, a little bit of top. I don't love the tops in here. I like the ADCs in here, and we're not going to use too much of these T1 teams either. So you're going to see some of that coming down a little bit. Let me go back to the sheet here. Yeah, sub threat, Faker. They're all big sub threats. Very little data on the team. HLE picks superstars deft and Chubby. Did not look good in their preseason games. HLE didn't look good. So, yeah, I don't really need too much going on here from HL. I think I'm going to skip this game for the most part. I can't play the T1 guys because they're all sub threats. So, and HLE just, I don't like the sound of that, so I'm going to skip that. I'm actually going to uncheck both of these guys. Just play it like this. Now, again, we're still running this tool pretty raw, and then I'm going to show you in a minute how to take it up a notch here. I just want to give it one more run to see who we're getting, and then we're going to start to show you how to mix and match these guys up a little bit better. So another run, again, all Gen G, a lot of Wii, IG, and T1. So here's where it gets fun. Now that I've got the teams a little bit set up, what I want to do is start to control for exposures and also for which players are going where. So in the notes, it says here that we, V5, and especially IG and LNG are the two best games. So if IG is going to be the best team and the highest scoring potential, even though I don't really understand why they're the highest scoring team, but if they're going to be, I guess LNG is a pretty bloody team, whatever it is. I want to get a lot of exposure to this game. Now, IG is definitely a massive favorite here, and they probably are going to win, but I want to get exposure to them. And this is the other game that we're excited for, we and V5. Either one of these teams, both could do really well. And the final one that I'm really excited for is Gen. So I've got my primaries are Gen, IG, and we, with a mix of V5. We're going to mix in a little bit of LNG, just a little taste, not that great, but at least their players are all confirmed and they're high scoring when they get wins. I'm going to avoid KT mainly because they're going up against Gen G, and even when you beat Gen G, they only die 14 times, so you don't want a lot of that. They don't tend to score well even when they win. Plus, there's all these sub threats which I don't want to fuck with. And I might bring back HLE and just these three. So I am going to bring back HLE and just the bottom crew. Let me just actually do that. I'm going to recheck them in and bring back just those guys that are not high risk. So the two high risks are Morgan and Arthur. Let me just read this here. Yeah, sub risk. A lot of sub risks. I gotta hear. I mean, how bad of a player are Arthur and Morgan? I mean, that's really what I want to understand. Do I have to uncheck these guys? Because I don't mind playing a little HLE, but not too much. Again, deaths per loss for T1 really bad. So I mean, I don't love it. I don't love it. Yeah, it's hard to play T1. There you go. So I don't want too much HLE, but I'm gonna take these two guys out. I'll take out Arthur and Morgan from my mix. I don't want too much of that though. Either way. So how do I get them out of there? I just look them up. And then Morgan. Okay, now we're going to start to get creative. So the issue here is we see the combinations. Jen and we, 88%. Jen and IG, Jen and T1, very little. So it's just like the same team over and over again, which I don't like. We're getting a lot of top, captain, jungler, very little ADC, and the ADC is coming from T1, a team we don't even want to deal with. So here's what we're going to start to do. I know that I want exposure V5. Hell yeah, I want V5. I don't know what the hell happened there. I want exposure to, it's T1 that I wanted to uncheck. I want a lot of exposure to this game, we versus V5. So what I'm going to do, since we is popping up the most, is I'm going to set a min target for V5 of 20%. Jen is just showing up on its own. I don't have to mess with them. And the other game we want a lot of exposure to is IG and LNG. IG being the primary, but get a little exposure to LNG as well. So I'll put in, 20% of that underdog, and I'm going to assume that IG is going to mix its way in there, give it a run, and see what happens. And in a minute, we're going to switch it over to fantasy points in a win, but I want to control for exposures first. I mean, the real question advantage is are they going to play? Like, sub risks. I don't know who's starting. The other night I played Teacher Mai, didn't start. I wasn't up late enough to make the change, and that kind of sucked. So I'm just trying to avoid sub risks as much as possible. All right, so here we go. We're getting the teams now. We got a little bit of a little IG, a little bit of V5, and a little bit of LNG. V5 is an underdog. LNG is an underdog. We and IG. Now, to me, V5 is my favorite underdog on the slate. I'm sorry. I'm going to raise this up, but here's what we're going to do next. Here's what happens. When you get the combinations, and especially the stacks, you're going to see what happens. Only the favorites wind up in the 4-player stack, and all the underdogs wind up in the 3-player stack. And this is the reason why I created the concept of using fantasy points in a win rather than mean projections to create these lineups. So now we're going to switch it. I'm going to show you how badass this works. And I could take it even further, which we have, which is called randomization. But we're not even there yet. So look what I just did. I just changed it over from mean fantasy points to fantasy points in a win. And we're going to get a whole different mix of teams right now. Now what's happening? LNG, which is an underdog and a highly unlikely to win underdog, by the way, we're getting 100% exposure. Now, you might be thinking, should we play 100% LNG? No. But seeing that we got 100% exposure when we changed it over to fantasy points, that happens because if LNG wins, they're going to score a shitload. Check out the stacks here. Look who's in the top position. LNG is now showing up top. Before, we didn't have any underdog showing up with a 5-man stack. Who's the avoid? Just to be clear, advantage. I want to make sure you're talking about who you're talking about. Are we talking about T1 as the avoid or HLE? Let me know. Comment section. All right. So meanwhile, look what happened. LNG, when I switched over to fantasy points and a win, is showing up everywhere. And they're getting the 4-player stack. But we already decided, listen, I like LNG. I like if they win, but they're also a really big underdog, plus 400, which is not unwinnable, but let's see what that translates to. Plus 400 is, yeah, it's only 19% chance. So I don't want a whole lot more than 20% exposure to LNG. So maybe I'll do 23%. I'll allow it. Let's see who else showed up. Which is fine. V5, fine. And then Gen G actually come down a little bit. Now, I still want to play a little bit of Gen G. I know that the thought is maybe they're not that great, but I'm going to force a minimum of 20%. Let's go. I'm going to go even 35%. All right. Now we'll give it another run. Let's see what happens. Now, a couple of cool features that you're looking at here. Number one, you can see everything. I go right to the teams column. I can see which teams we used and how much of them. So now we're at 42% V5, 42% we, 34% Gen, some KT. I don't know what team is that. IG, LNG, and HLE. What the hell is KT? I forgot what their deal is. KT is playing against Gen G. Interesting. What are their odds? We giving these guys a shot, Ray? We giving these guys a shot, KT? I guess we can get a little bit of exposure to that as well. But this one also, I mean, this KT has a lot of sub threats, and I don't like it. Large GPP only. So yeah, it's really sketchy playing these guys. So I don't want too much of that. So I'm going to actually limit them as well. Since KT is showing up that much, I'm just going to limit them to, let's say, 10%, right? So now we're getting somewhere. Starting to create nice stacked lineups. I'm going to show you what these look like here in a minute. I'm just controlling my team exposures first. Then we're going to get to the player exposures a little bit. So I've controlled my teams here. Now we're getting, all right, a lot of V5, too much V5, too much V5. Where's V5? Actually, it's a little too much. Maybe I'll go 30% V5, right? Let me lower that just a little bit. We're getting plenty of Gen G, a lot of we. I love we. Great. IG is the best team on this whole damn thing and the highest potential score. Want to get a little bit more of that, so we'll see what happens. On the next run, some LNG, HLE, and here we go. So we're getting closer. Now I want to start to control some of the players in my lineups. All right, so we're getting lots of, here we go, ADC, 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 and mid. This is good. KT has some shot. Okay. Okay, perfect. Perfect. What about HLE, man? That's a tough one. HLE is the tough one. I don't know if I want 20% HLE. KT has some chance. I'm going to give him 15%. HLE, I'm going to max out at 10%. You're confused about how much exposure to give some of these underdog teams. A really good way to look at it is just to look at their win odds. So HLE's got about 30% win odds. We has about 31% win odds. That's decent. KT 21%. That's real. They have a chance of winning. It's not that long of a long shot, and they'll be owned less than what their win odds are. So keep that in mind. Now, here's another interesting component. So you start to see our 4-player and our 5-player stacks and getting a pretty good mix. Let's look at the combinations. This is important as well. So what this is showing is, all right, I'm getting 28% of my lineups in Gen G versus V5. I'm getting 10%, 20% in IG versus V5. A lot of V5, HLE, we, Gen G, LNG, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just trying to think if I see any underdog combinations. So this is favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog. So every single lineup has a favorite and an underdog in it. Not trusting Kate. I love the advice, guys, man. Fuck T1 then. T1's not a good scoring team from what I understand anyway. So it's like it becomes an easy fade. These guys are all pretty bad scoring players according to these fantasy point and win projections. So why do I need to force them, right? And again, the issue I have with HLE probably has more to do with this Morgan and Arthur both kind of being sketchy sub threats than anything else. But yeah, too many sub threats on T1. Fuck that. Right? If somebody wants to take that chance on T1, fine by me, but it's not going to be me. So I think that I have to assume that V5 is the best of the underdogs. Got to be V5. Yeah. Ray has them as his favorite underdog, so I'm down with that, and I probably would have picked them to win if they had a better ADC, et cetera, et cetera. You're not a big Y4 fan. You know what? I am. So whatever. I like Y4. He's my guy. I don't give a fuck. Of course, IG is a good team to always roster. So I want a lot of IG, and I want to take a look and see how much of them I'm actually getting here. And I have one more trick up my sleeve, guys. So hang with me. I got another trick up my sleeve. I want at least 50% of IG. I'm going to go a little higher than that. So I'm going to force a lot of IG, but I have one more trick up my sleeve. Now, one little addition that I've added here, if you want to get really freaky with your lineups, what you're noticing again is take a look here. IG V5, Gen V5. So that's favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite underdog, favorite. Now, actually, LNG and V5 is both underdogs. Then we got favorite underdog. And so of all of these lineups, only one was two underdogs. We have a setting here that allows you to just randomly select teams. Now, what does that mean and why would you use it? Random select teams means you're literally just matching up teams randomly. Now, again, if you're going to do this, you have to control for exposures very, very carefully. So here, I have to look at my exposures and just make sure they're what I need to see. Like I'm not getting as much team we as I kind of want. I like the rest of these exposures. Pretty good. Yeah, I kind of like this. But look at the combinations now. A much, much better kind of mix of combinations we're going to see here. With here's, we're going to get a little bit more diversification. Like here's LNG V5. That's two underdogs. Gen G and IG, we got two favorites matched up. So a couple different ways. I don't think I'm going to use randomize today, but I'm just pointing out that you can use it. Now, again, a big slate like this, I'm going to go an extra step, and I'm going to say that I think I'm very confident that one of these underdogs will win. And so I'm going to either set limits on top. Like I don't want 16% of a top. I'll allow 5% at captain. So I like to limit the poor scoring positions. It's interesting how we're not getting many mids. And so we have to kind of look at that. I also don't even love jungler that much. Here's another top that I don't want to see. Here's a top from he's a favorite top, so I'll allow it. Let's go 4%. Basically, I want to really limit tops and any sort of support or any position that's not high scoring. I want to limit them as much as possible. V5 56%, IG 54, Gen 40%, that's fine. LNG, KT, HLE, that's definitely not enough so I want to raise that up a little bit. Let's go 35% with them. Another run. You get the idea. Now, one other little trick of the trade here, and this isn't super, look, all ADCs. Kind of want some mids in here, but for now, this is not too bad. It's a pretty sexy 50 lineups with all ADCs. This is an underdog, favorite, underdog, favorite, underdog, underdog, underdog. That's pretty good. I wouldn't mind mixing in the mids. Mid can easily outscore an ADC. Gonna have to figure out how to adjust projections to make that happen a little bit. Also like to look through and make sure that not any one player is just popping too much, but so far this looks pretty good. This is a nice even mix. Raise somebody like that up, 70. I like to raise them up. I don't like to see too little. The shy. Again, pretty good mix of players across the board. I'm gonna raise up some of those numbers a little bit, try to level those guys out. The other thing I want to do is on the captain position, I do want to raise up some of these mids and see if we can get some exposure to them as well. I don't understand why I shouldn't have some. So like, let's go. I'm just going to force. Let's see if we can force some of these guys in there. Yeah. Let's see how that works. Here we go. So anyway, I continue to control. One other thing that I wanted to show you is the ability to control combinations. So I got 30% of Gen versus V5. Great. Except maybe that's too much of that one combo. So I can limit this. I can set a max limit of 20% here. I can set a max limit IGV5 of 18%, right? LNG, I'm getting too much. So I can go 15. If I want to mix it up, this is a great way to do it. Use this component, and you could limit the combination. So you have all kinds of ways to make sure that you're mixing and matching these lineups in the perfect way. There we go. At some point, you run into an issue where you can't make any more lineups because you set these limitations. So I'm probably going to have to raise that up just enough. So that won't happen. Let's try that again. There we go. Better mix. Much more diversification across my ADC pool and my player pool in general. I still have some work to do here, but the overview for me and the final is when you're done, you get to use all of these tools to kind of see, all right, here are my 5-player stacks, here are my 4-player stacks, here are my 3-player stacks. You can look at the combinations and decide if you want to limit or reduce any of them. Too much Gen G versus V5, fine. You can limit it. You can control which teams are in your stacks right up here in the control box, no problem. And when you're ready to make your lineups, download them using this button right here. Download all the lineups. Good to go. Now, one other thing I didn't show you in this tutorial was how to disinclude team from the stack. Let's say I want to disallow team from being in the stacks completely. I'm going to show you what those lineups look like. Do 4-2 stacks. Now let's see what happens here. I'm going to show some lineups when this is done. So in this case, you can allow a team to be floating. So check out this lineup. This lineup, basically what it does is it spends only 46.5. It's we and LNG, so favored and an underdog. It actually went heavier on the underdog play, which is fine. And then rather than using the team position from either of these two, it used Gen G, which is the highest projected team. So, or here, some of them are using T1, which is projected really well. Now, the danger with this approach, and there is danger, the danger is that you have this great lineup, including some underdogs in it, right? But then Gen G, which is a favorite, ends up losing and it fucks up your lineup. So be careful when doing this, because part of the beauty of stacking two teams, 3-4, is that you lock in the fact that if you've picked two winners, that every player on your lineup won their game, including the team position. So it's a super GPP only approach to allow the team position to float. In this case, this was a double. This is an underdog team. Actually, no, this is KT and IG. So this one's totally fine. That actually just wound up randomly using the team from the stack, but that was just a random occasion. Here's another one though, where in order to fit KT and IG together, it used the HLE team, and HLE is an underdog. What if they lose? Then the KT underdog win. You lose it because you've got two underdog situations in your lineup. So I prefer this when the team that it winds up rostering is a heavy favored team. Essentially in a lineup where you had a lot of money left over and it was able to just spend up. So part of the way that I can control for that is if you actually go to the team position, if you want to control for it, the way to do it is just to make sure that the more of a favorite a team is, the higher their projection. So like LNG, I don't really want an underdog team, only 19% chance to show up in lineup, so I'll lower them down, and et cetera, et cetera. You can make an adjustment, lower these team scores for underdogs. We want to kind of focus in on only favorites showing up as one-offs. That will help that, at least just a little bit, especially when there's a lot of salary left over. So, guys, that's going to do it for the Domination Station. This was a long one because I'm also kind of showing tonight's slate alongside a tutorial on how to use this tool. Your takeaways are you should be stacking two teams, 1-4 and 1-3. Learn and figure out how to use fantasy points in a win projection. Don't use it unless you fully understand that exposures will not be focused on favorites when you use that. So you need to control your exposures completely when using that tool. You know, you can get a little crazy with the 4-2s and that, but I wouldn't suggest doing that right off the bat, and just use these tools how you can. Also, very important note, avoid anything other than mid or ADC or jungler at captain unless you absolutely are forced to. Those things have won in the past. Tops have won as captain in the past, but it's not ideal. Captain tops don't score as well. ADC, mid, jungler are the best scorers, and it's usually ADC or mid that is the number one scorer, and the jungler that's kind of like the secondary that every once in a while outscores the ADC or the mid. So that's how this stuff works. Good luck. Good luck tomorrow. And good luck this League of Legends season using the Dom Station Optimizer. Like I said, there is no better way to fucking take these tournaments down than using this tool, because it's built specifically to attack League of Legends tournaments. No one else has anything like it, so we have a major advantage on the field. Enjoy, and good luck, everybody. Take care.